clear, departing 2-1 right turn out to the west. If you look to your left, that's the Merroir oyster tasting room, and then you can see the actual oyster facility right next to that. Shake and tea, here we come.
So right now he's going over to Alpha to pick up some XLs for the shuck market. Where our grandfather did it was probably about 30 miles upriver. We've probably got about 150 acres. It gives us the ability to kind of use spots sparingly, like use them for a little while, let it go fallow, move to another spot if we need to.
Just the biggest part is, you know, you gotta stay with your line, and when you hook up, you gotta do it really fast. You put all your weight on one side of your boat, you're gonna be leaning. And you know, you hit the right wave, you're gonna get enough water in the boat, and it's not gonna be good. This is an ideal morning right here.
We got a phone call from our dads, I think he got it from his dad, saying that our oyster leases, our family oyster leases were being re-upped, and did we have any interest in them, because our dads were no longer interested in renewing these things.
We sort of had just this keen interest on history of our family, as well as after researching it, figuring out all the issues that the Chesapeake had and how this oyster had been lost to the world.
It was really a sorry picture. I mean, all the wild oysters had pretty much vanished. Our populations were decimated. So it wasn't a real like rah-rah, let's go do this. It was more like, you know, there's a cool opportunity to try and salvage something. So let's dig a little deeper.
You know, every kind of hurdle that came up, whether it's, hey, we don't have any money, we don't have any boats, we don't have any know-how, this stuff, we just figured out what we needed to figure out.
They arrive here from the hatchery about 1 millimeter. We can get them a little bit smaller, but 1 millimeter we found is probably a good size to start treating them with open water. As they grow, we keep splitting them out because we all want stuff to be in like sizes, because when they're like size, they feed evenly.
Every Christmas or every holiday was always at our grandfather's house, and he had this garage. We parked a couple cars that smelled like cigarettes, gasoline. He had these brick steps leading into the house. He was always out there shucking into pint jars, and then we'd have dinner or whatever, but beforehand or after, he would just be passing that around.
Then they end up in our paddle wheel out here, which this paddle wheel, if pushed, can do probably about 20 million oysters that will push through here. They'll go in around 6 to 8 millimeters, and we'll run them through here until about 12 millimeters.
We have two different ways of looking at things, and so early on, and now too, but especially early on, we would just fight positively and get to a third better place that ultimately was a right solution.
These half-inch cages will hold our smallest stuffs, broadly cast them in here in kind of light densities so that they have room to move around when the currents start to splash over them. It allows them to jostle around, because what you want to do is you always want to be chipping off that outer bill growth so that you're shaping the oyster so it gets a nice tight round shape, and without them spending a whole lot of time growing shell, they're going to grow depth. We're able to do something that challenges us intensely in one of the most bucolic and backwater places on Earth, and it's, that's kind of special to not have to leave home where we grew up to be able to do this. and then they go up this conveyor, they go through this, which is what we call a singulator. What it is, it's basically built on the concept of like Archimedes' screw, where this thing rotates in like this, and the oysters become single file.
This, on the Rappahannock Oyster Farm, there was sediment in the water, no subaquatic vegetation whatsoever, just a lot of mud. Now you go out there, it's opaque.
And this computer has a camera up in the top of it that will scan each oyster, and we can set a recipe up for 6 different size grades.
Really kind of re-established the oyster reef concept that was prevalent for centuries here, eons. So it's just, we were able to actually see the impact of what we do. 35 millimeters will come out of here, our 45s here, our 55s here, 65s, 75s, and then 85s. In so many ways, people have been obviously doing oysters for thousands of years, but in so many ways it's at least a new opportunity for America to be doing aquaculture in this way with like this type of animal that's so sustainable, and people use that term sustainability all the time, and it's just gotten a little tired. But that was probably the greatest thing about this business for us, is kind of like peeling that onion about oysters and realizing, how great they are as a species in the ecology of it, but also as a farming product. That we were growing something that was a very efficient protein that was very much needed, and that was providing this huge ecological service. 75 millimeters is about 3 inches. That's kind of a market size. So this is kind of our honey shoot, if you will. And then that's pretty much it. That's to market. Once you get to shoot 5, you've matured to the point where it's time to go to the plate.
What do you think your great-grandfather and grandfather would think of your business, what you've done?
I know it's hard to imagine what they would think of it, because everything is so different.
He's rolling over in his grave.
Yeah. He'd probably be down there every day checking on him.
Oh, I did get a wine. The waterman went out in September, and it got a little colder each month. We'd come home from college in December, January, on break, and go right out into the freezing, and it was a challenge.
Well, in January, when college started back up again, we were ready to go back to school.
I'll bet.
And study a little bit, because we didn't want to do that for a living.
Well, and he kind of encouraged you guys to not pursue that, right?
Yeah.
Only in the 70s when the oysters started dying. Because I kind of really wanted to go into business, but there was no way when the oysters, we had MSX and Dermo, and that last $10,000 worth of oysters that just died. We used to compare farming to oystering. Farmers could get insurance on crops.
Oh, that's still the case. I mean, it's a big issue now. We're not, this industry, the way we're doing it, they still don't consider it farming. It's still kind of this lost
They've offered a little bit more of crop insurance. Started with clams and now a little bit on oysters, but it's developing.
People care about the water now, and there's a lot more education, a lot more awareness.
We just took everything for granted. It was beautiful then, and we didn't have any idea that it'd be polluted or whatever. And
there used to be a slogan on a T-shirt at West Point, Virginia: "Save the Bay, eat a waterman."
Our family has been built on this industry that ultimately ended up being destructive to the oyster health. And I think when we came along, we knew far better at that point. And so that's when we knew we had to change it and do it a different way. We couldn't just keep taking from the wild. We had to figure out how to put back. Many more.
Many more.
The two oysters that we're serving right now, we've got Rappahannocks and Old Salts. The Rappahannocks are right here. This is our Rappahannock farm, so the Rappahannock River. They're more mild, sweet. The Old Salts from Chesapeake, they're going to be more briny, kind of that oceany flavor. They're all the same species, so it's just kind of where they are grown that kind of changes the flavor profile.
At the Melcher airport, and it's kind of the closest location to our farm that's on the eastern shore.
Have this stuff up on the surface, you're gonna have this more in the public eye, right? So how to do it on a scale that is good for the oyster, good for the product, but also good for the upland landowners, and getting everybody on the same page of saying, hey, we want to get this right just as much as you want to get it right, because we want to expand this thing and put more oysters in the bay. Definitely polishing up some. I mean, with a little bit of just a little bit of spray from the from when you do the final process. I mean, that's gonna clean up well. Yeah, I mean, if you can get them all cupping up like that, it'd be in business. So it does look like turning these things and agitating them a little bit more, and it's been worth it. So
Yeah, definitely.
if we can, take pride in what we do and make these things look good, so it's more akin to a vineyard than it is someone. Some people just don't like to see the stuff in their backyard, right? So taking the time to make sure your lines are straight, taking the time to keep your gear in good condition, to paint a good picture for the industry is important, so that we can, as a whole, as the United States, really, come together and show that we can do aquaculture on a large scale and do it well, and not have to import so much of our seafood.
An industry like this, starting like this in 2021, where you have a modern sensibility and you know how to build this for a long future. Not like we've built our food systems in the past, where it's been more about take. We really have an opportunity with this to build it for a long vision, which I think makes us excited about leaving something that's incredibly lasting. Obviously not just our business, but an industry that's going to keep going for a long time.